Ambassador Daniel Reeves had always been proud to represent Earth among the stars. He was not just any diplomat. He was one of the youngest humans ever to reach the Galactic Council, and his reputation for intelligence, calm reasoning, and courage had preceded him. The Council, a gathering of countless alien species, was usually cold and bureaucratic, filled with beings who spoke in tones that could chill or charm in equal measure. Some species had multiple limbs, some communicated through vibrations or colors, and some had powers humans could barely comprehend. For centuries, humanity had been considered a minor player, a curious but weak species, incapable of influencing galactic politics. Reeves knew this, and he also knew that earning respect in this council would be dangerous, but it was worth it. When he arrived at the Unity Summit, the massive hall of the council shimmered with colors that humans had never seen before. Massive crystal towers reflected light like living rainbows, and alien delegates moved with a confidence and grace that could feel intimidating. Reeves, in his simple human suit, looked small compared to many of the towering creatures around him. Some had translucent skin showing their pulsing organs, while others had armored plates, natural weapons, or eyes that could see in multiple spectrums. Yet Daniel did not feel fear. He had trained for this moment his entire life, studying the languages, customs, and politics of hundreds of alien civilizations. He knew that respect was earned, not demanded, but he also knew that fear could not guide his actions. The first meetings were tense. Many species whispered to each other in strange dialects, casting curious glances at the human among them. Reeves spoke calmly and politely, introducing himself and Earth's intentions. He explained humanity's desire for peaceful trade, cultural exchange, and cooperation in resolving disputes in the outer colonies. But some delegates, particularly the more powerful ones, were openly skeptical. They saw humans as unpredictable, emotional, and weak, believing that if they treated Daniel Reeves with arrogance or subtle threats, he would retreat. But Daniel remained composed. He smiled politely, made careful gestures, and answered every question with facts, logic, and diplomacy. He knew that the first impression mattered, and he was determined to make it strong. Over the next few days, Reeves became a surprising presence in the council. He attended debates, listened carefully to arguments, and sometimes spoke when needed. His speeches were clear, logical, and persuasive. He didn't shout or threaten. He explained, reasoned, and challenged ideas respectfully. Surprisingly, some delegates began to admire him. Small alliances formed. Some minor species, previously ignored, saw Daniel as a protector of fairness and justice. Even powerful delegates noticed the shift. Humanity, through Reeves, was gaining recognition. This attention, however, did not go unnoticed by those who preferred to maintain the old order. Tensions rose when the council discussed human colonies in disputed territories. Some alien species wanted to impose strict control, claiming that humans were encroaching on areas reserved for others. Reeves stood firm. He presented documents, treaties, and evidence of peaceful settlement and cooperation. He reminded the council that humans had never started a war with other species, had paid their dues, and had respected interstellar laws. His words were calm but firm, showing that humans were not naive. They were capable of defending themselves if pushed too far. While many delegates nodded in agreement, a few powerful ones scowled. They didn't like a human challenging them. Some whispered threats, others sent cold stares, and a few tried to intimidate him with subtle gestures. Daniel Reeves, however, remained unshaken. The night before the most important session of the summit, Daniel walked alone in the council's vast corridors. The place was silent, but the silence felt heavy, as if the walls themselves were watching. He thought about Earth, about the billions of humans who had entrusted him with this mission. He knew the stakes were enormous. One wrong move could provoke conflict, and one smart move could earn humanity the respect it deserved. He was aware that some powerful leaders might try to remove him quietly, to prevent him from influencing votes. He felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders, but he also felt a sense of purpose stronger than fear. The morning of the crucial debate arrived. Reeves entered the chamber, flanked by security droids and his few aides. The room was packed with delegates, many of them glaring, others curious, and a few openly hostile. The discussion was about granting humans a seat on the council's advisory board, a position traditionally reserved for older, more established species. Reeves spoke eloquently, outlining humanity's accomplishments, contributions to interstellar peace, and the importance of giving young species a voice. Some delegates tried to interrupt, some tried to belittle him, but he remained composed. His calm confidence and unwavering logic won over several neutral species, and whispers of approval started spreading through the chamber. By mid-afternoon, it was clear that Daniel Reeves had made an impact. Small factions of the council began to support him. They saw not just a human diplomat, but a symbol of hope for fairness, for the voices that had long been ignored. However, the powerful species who felt threatened were furious. Their plan was to scare him, to intimidate humanity and to maintain their dominance over the galaxy. They whispered among themselves, plotting to ensure that this human upstart would never gain the power or respect they feared. Later that evening, Daniel prepared to leave the chamber. He was tired but satisfied. His speeches had been strong, his presence respected, and the momentum was shifting. But in the shadows, a plan was already in motion. High-ranking council members had ordered covert security units to intercept Reeves after he left. It was supposed to look like an accident, a technical failure, a mechanical explosion. But the intent was clear. Remove him, erase the human voice before it became too strong. Daniel had no way of knowing this. He trusted the council's safety protocols and believed that his security measures were enough. As his transport vehicle moved through the council corridors, everything seemed normal. The guards nodded, the lights glimmered, and the massive hallways echoed with distant conversations. Then, without warning, a sudden explosion ripped through the transport. The force was immense. Glass shattered, metal bent, and the vehicle was thrown violently. The corridor shook as the blast echoed across the council chamber. Delegates outside screamed, alarms blared, and chaos erupted. In an instant, the young human diplomat who had stood so boldly for his species was gone. The council was stunned. What was supposed to be a political debate had turned into an act of murder. Across the galaxy, news of the explosion traveled instantly. Advanced communication networks transmitted the images and recordings to Earth in seconds. Citizens watched in horror as the unthinkable unfolded. Ambassador Daniel Reeves, a man they had trusted and admired, had been killed on foreign soil, in a place that was supposed to guarantee safety and diplomacy. Shock turned into grief. Grief turned into anger, and anger began to ignite a fire that no one could contain. For decades, humanity had been patient, cautious, and diplomatic. Now they had seen the first act of true aggression against one of their own in the galaxy. For the first time, the council realized that killing a human diplomat was not a minor crime. It was a declaration of war, whether they intended it or not. Reeves's death became a symbol, proof that humanity was no longer to be ignored. Across the stars, humans began preparing quietly, analyzing strategies and readying fleets. The world had changed in a single moment. And while Daniel Reeves had fallen, his legacy had only begun. His courage, his dignity, and his unwavering belief in justice had set the stage for humanity to rise as a force that no one would underestimate again. The news of Ambassador Daniel Reeves's death spread across Earth like wildfire. People stopped what they were doing the moment the screens flickered to life with the reports. Cities fell silent as families, friends, and co-workers stared in disbelief at the images and videos of the explosion at the Galactic Council. It wasn't just the violence that shocked them. It was the realization that Reeves, a man sent to represent all of humanity, had been deliberately targeted. The broadcast showed fragments of the transport wreckage, flickering holographic images and reports from surviving security personnel. Every detail confirmed the truth. This had not been an accident. Someone had wanted him dead. Governments across the world called emergency meetings. Leaders, diplomats, and military officials gathered in crisis rooms, their faces tense and pale. In Washington, London, Beijing, New Delhi, and dozens of other capitals, the same fear and anger ran through every mind. Humanity had always been cautious in dealing with alien civilizations. They had built trade agreements, research exchanges, and diplomatic channels to avoid conflicts. But now one of their most respected diplomats had been killed in cold blood, and the message was clear. Humanity was no longer safe, no matter how polite or careful they were. Admiral Sarah Holt, one of Earth's most skilled military strategists, was summoned to the United Earth Defense Command headquarters. She was a tall woman with sharp eyes and a commanding presence, known for her decisive thinking and ability to make tough calls under pressure. As she entered the war room, the atmosphere was tense. Officers hurriedly analyzed surveillance footage, intercepted communications, and reports from diplomats and spies across the galaxy. Holt examined the evidence carefully. Her jaw tightened when she saw the recordings. Reeves had been surrounded by alien security before the explosion, showing clear signs that this had been orchestrated. This was no accident. This was murder. The initial shock on Earth quickly turned into outrage. Protests erupted in major cities, not against governments but against the injustice. People held candles and banners calling for justice for Reeves. News channels played clips of his speeches, reminding everyone of his calm courage, his eloquence, and his dedication to peace. Citizens demanded answers. How could a human diplomat be killed in what was supposed to be a neutral space? How could the Council allow this to happen? But there were no answers. Only questions, anger, and an emerging sense of unity that had never existed on Earth before. Within hours, the United Earth Defense Command convened a global session with the World Council, a coalition of nations that coordinated Earth's response to interstellar issues. Military advisors, diplomats, and politicians debated the next steps. Some advocated restraint, urging humanity to avoid retaliation that could escalate into a full-scale war. They warned of the risks: alien fleets, advanced technology, and unknown weapons that could devastate Earth. But their voices were overwhelmed by a chorus of determination and rage. Humanity had always been underestimated. Now the entire species was united by grief and anger, demanding action. Admiral Holt stood before the council, her voice steady but icy. They think we are weak. They think we will forgive this, and they are wrong. Daniel Reeves represented the best of us. His death is an attack on all of humanity. We will not wait for permission. We will act. And we will make sure that every species that thought they could harm us without consequence understands exactly what it means to cross Earth. Her words echoed in the chamber, leaving no room for doubt. The council members, even those who had hesitated, nodded in agreement. Humanity's response would be swift, calculated, and undeniable. Meanwhile, scientists and engineers across Earth worked furiously to ready the fleets. Every warship was inspected, upgraded, and armed. Advanced propulsion systems were tested, weapons calibrated, and communication networks strengthened. For decades, humanity had invested in interstellar defense quietly, without aggression, believing peace was possible. Now every project, every prototype, every hidden fleet became critical. Earth's response would be precise, targeting those responsible while minimizing collateral damage. Nothing would be left to chance. News networks began telling stories of Reeves's life, highlighting his courage and intelligence. He was remembered not only as a diplomat but as a symbol of humanity's potential. Children were shown videos of him explaining peaceful resolutions. Students wrote essays on his speeches, and adults discussed his bravery in cafes and homes. His image became a rallying point, uniting millions of people across continents. Every citizen, whether they were involved in government or not, felt that the attack on Reeves was personal. It was no longer just a political issue. It was a matter of identity and pride. Across the globe, intelligence agencies worked tirelessly to identify the individuals behind the attack. They hacked alien networks, intercepted communications, and pieced together the conspiracy. Leaks from council members revealed that the explosion had been ordered by powerful factions who feared the growing influence of humans. They wanted to maintain control and suppress any species that could challenge their authority. The evidence inflamed public opinion even more. Humanity realized that this was not an isolated incident, but a deliberate attempt to subjugate them. Meanwhile, the human fleets began strategic movements. Ships positioned near major council trade routes, recon units scanned nearby star systems, and defense platforms were put on high alert. Earth's military planners debated whether to send only warning strikes or to prepare for full engagement. Every detail mattered: the timing of launches, the selection of targets, and the coordination of multiple fleets across light years. For the first time in history, humanity's war machinery, designed for defense, was preparing to act decisively for justice. The Galactic Council, upon realizing the severity of Earth's reaction, attempted to issue statements of regret. They claimed that the explosion was a tragic accident caused by technical failure. But the proof was undeniable. Satellite images and recordings clearly showed Reeves surrounded by Council security before the blast. The Council's lies only fueled the anger on Earth. Citizens and leaders alike refused to trust any explanation. They had been patient, cooperative, and respectful, and now they knew the truth. Some alien leaders had wanted a human dead, and they had succeeded. As Earth prepared for retaliation, ordinary people also found ways to contribute. Engineers built drones, programmers hacked alien networks for intelligence, and volunteers assisted in logistics and communication. Humanity's unity was unprecedented. It wasn't just the military acting. It was every person feeling the loss of Reeves and determined to defend the honor of their species. Across the world, people of all ages felt that their actions, big or small, mattered in this moment of reckoning. In the midst of planning and preparation, memorials for Reeves were organized. Statues, portraits, and holographic displays reminded everyone of his courage. Speeches emphasized that his death was not in vain. It was the spark that would ignite humanity's emergence as a serious force in the galaxy. While grief was heavy, determination was heavier. Every citizen felt the weight of responsibility. Humanity had been underestimated for too long, and now they were ready to prove that they were not to be taken lightly. By the end of the first week after Reeves's death, Earth's fleets were ready. Every strategic point in orbit and near the Council systems had been surveyed. Communication networks were secured to prevent sabotage. Plans for a rapid surgical strike were in place, ensuring that humanity would respond with precision rather than chaos. The world had shifted overnight. What began as grief and anger had transformed into focus and resolve. Humanity was no longer waiting for permission or recognition. They were taking action. The death of Daniel Reeves had united an entire species. His courage, his dedication, and his ultimate sacrifice became the fuel for humanity's rise. People who had once doubted themselves, who had believed humanity's influence was limited, now saw themselves as part of a powerful and determined species capable of defending their own. In homes, offices, and training centers, people whispered his name with respect, mourning him but also honoring the path he had opened. The memory of Reeves's life and death became a rallying cry that no alien could ignore, and the world was ready to answer the question that had been asked by his killers. What happens when humanity is pushed too far? The answer was clear. Humanity would no longer be a minor voice in galactic affairs. Humanity would no longer be underestimated. Humanity would take its place among the stars, and it would do so with the memory of Daniel Reeves guiding every step. His death had been a tragedy, but it was also the spark that would lead to the rise of a species united by grief, justice, and unshakable resolve. After the shocking murder of Ambassador Daniel Reeves, Earth's response moved from anger to action. The first priority was to gather undeniable proof of the Council's deliberate involvement. Human intelligence networks worked day and night, hacking into alien communication systems, intercepting encrypted messages, and piecing together the chain of events leading to Reeves's death. The evidence was horrifyingly clear. Powerful factions within the Galactic Council had orchestrated the explosion. Security footage showed Reeves surrounded by guards mere minutes before the transport erupted. Communications revealed orders signed by high-ranking Council officials. It was no accident. It was a planned execution. The confirmation ignited a firestorm on Earth. The population, already outraged, now demanded immediate retribution. Humanity would no longer wait to be underestimated. While intelligence agencies collected proof, the military began preparing for the next phase. Humanity's warships, many of which had been secretly stationed near Council trade routes and border systems, were moved into strategic positions. These fleets were not enormous compared to some alien species, but they were fast, advanced, and highly coordinated. The scientists and engineers who had spent decades developing Earth's space technology now became key players in the coming conflict. Weapons were calibrated with extreme precision, propulsion systems were pushed to their limits, and communication networks were hardened against alien interference. Every system, every ship, and every officer knew that humanity's first actions would set the tone for the war. Mistakes could cost thousands of lives and allow the Council to regroup, so preparation was meticulous and relentless. The Council, sensing Earth's growing readiness, attempted to issue statements of regret. They claimed that the death of Reeves had been a tragic accident caused by technical malfunctions. But the proof humans had gathered was indisputable. Security footage, recordings, and intercepted orders all pointed to a deliberate assassination. No one on Earth believed the Council's lies. News networks broadcasted every detail of the evidence, showing the world how the Council had lied, manipulated, and attempted to cover up their crime. The reaction among Earth's citizens was visceral. People were no longer merely angry. They were united, determined, and ready for war. The first coordinated strike was planned with extreme caution. Humanity had no intention of engaging in reckless aggression. Their goal was to demonstrate power, deliver justice, and minimize civilian casualties on other planets. Advanced stealth ships were sent ahead of the main fleet to survey Council defenses, gather real-time intelligence, and ensure the main forces could strike precisely. Every captain, engineer, and soldier understood the stakes. The attack had to be a clear message that humanity would not be treated as weak, but also calculated enough to avoid provoking an uncontrollable war that could destroy Earth. When the human fleets entered orbit above the planet Corinth, a significant Council outpost, the alien commanders initially laughed. They underestimated the humans, seeing them as primitive and emotional beings wielding inferior technology. But their laughter quickly turned to alarm. Human warships, despite being fewer in number, moved with deadly coordination. Weapon systems fired with pinpoint accuracy, hitting critical defense stations while avoiding civilian centers. Alien fleets scrambled to respond, but human strategies were unpredictable, exploiting weaknesses the Council had never considered. Within hours, entire defense grids were neutralized. Humanity's first strike was not reckless destruction. It was calculated, precise, and terrifyingly effective. As news of Corinth spread, other Council species began to take notice. Small factions who had previously been neutral or even dismissive of humanity now reconsidered their positions. Humans who had been seen as emotional and weak were demonstrating strategy, coordination, and the capacity to strike decisively. Across the galaxy, diplomats and citizens alike began to whisper, maybe humanity was not to be underestimated. The psychological impact of these first strikes was as important as the physical destruction. Fear and respect began to replace arrogance among some alien species, signaling a shift in galactic power dynamics. Meanwhile, on Earth, the military and government continued to coordinate the next moves. Fleet commanders studied every report from Corinth, analyzing alien strategies and adapting tactics in real time. Engineers repaired and upgraded ships mid-operation, demonstrating the incredible flexibility of humanity's systems. Even civilians contributed by monitoring communications, providing intelligence, and developing software to counter alien defense networks. Earth was no longer merely reacting to an attack. It was leading a full-scale strategic operation, blending military precision with technological innovation. The Galactic Council, now fully aware of the threat, attempted to negotiate. They sent emissaries to Earth offering apologies, claiming accidental malfunction and promising to cooperate. But humanity refused to trust empty words. The Council had tried to kill one of their own, and now they would face consequences. Admiral Sarah Holt, standing in Earth's command center, made it clear that negotiations would only occur on Earth's terms. Any attempt to deceive or delay would result in further strikes. The message was simple. Humanity was no longer a species to be ignored, manipulated, or threatened. As the war progressed, humanity began to uncover deeper truths. Intercepted communications revealed not only the murder of Reeves, but also widespread corruption and conspiracies among the Council's leadership. Many of the Council species had been suppressing smaller civilizations for centuries, fearing competition or losing control. Humanity's emergence, led by Reeves's diplomatic brilliance and Holt's military strategy, exposed weaknesses, lies, and fears that the Council had long hidden. Alien populations who had previously accepted their leaders' authority began questioning them, sowing unrest and fear. Humanity was reshaping the political landscape of the galaxy, not just through force, but through revelation and truth. Back on Corinth and other planets affected by humanity's strikes, civilians witnessed destruction, but also signs of restraint. Humans carefully avoided indiscriminate attacks, focusing on military targets. News reports broadcast across alien networks revealed that Earth's attacks were precise, not motivated by hatred, but by justice and strategic necessity. Even the victims of war could see that humanity was not reckless. They were disciplined, clever, and determined. This earned them a new kind of respect, even from those who had once dismissed them. In the midst of these operations, human commanders never forgot Daniel Reeves. His death was the catalyst for the war, but his principles guided every strike. The fleet's actions were precise, deliberate, and calculated, reflecting the careful ethical diplomacy he had championed. Soldiers and officers often spoke of him, using his name as inspiration to act not out of revenge, but to protect humanity and ensure that no other human would be treated with such cruelty. Reeves's legacy had become the moral and strategic compass for Earth's war efforts. By the time the first major campaign concluded, it was clear that humanity had changed the galaxy's perception. The Galactic Council's forces were in retreat, key installations destroyed, and alien populations questioning their leadership. Humans had proven that while they were emotional and compassionate, they were also strategic, capable, and unafraid to defend their own. Earth's rise as a galactic power had begun, and it was rooted in the courage and sacrifice of one diplomat, whose murder had awakened the full force of a united species. Even as battles raged, humanity prepared for the next phase. Reconnaissance missions gathered intelligence from other Council planets. Communication networks intercepted plans of retaliation, and military engineers developed new technologies to anticipate alien tactics. Every step was calculated to maintain the advantage and minimize unnecessary loss of life. Humanity's approach to war was not just brute force, it was a combination of intellect, precision, and determination, reflecting the very best of what Daniel Reeves had stood for. The first strikes against the Council were more than military victories. They were a statement. Humanity had risen from a species often dismissed as weak and emotional to a force capable of challenging even the most advanced civilizations. Across Earth, citizens watched in awe as fleets moved across space, striking with precision and discipline. The world felt a surge of pride, knowing that humanity could finally claim respect among the stars. By the end of this phase, the galaxy knew a hard truth. Humans were no longer a minor species. They were organized, intelligent, and capable of exacting justice with deadly efficiency. Reeves's death had been the spark, but humanity's actions would be the fire that reshaped the balance of power. For the first time, the Council and the galaxy as a whole understood that they had underestimated a species that would not be ignored. Humanity had begun to write a new chapter in galactic history, one defined by courage, strategy, and the unwavering demand for respect. The war had begun in earnest, and humanity's strikes had already shaken the foundations of the Galactic Council. Alien leaders who once laughed at Earth's supposed weakness were now scrambling to defend themselves. Their fleets were scattered, defense systems disrupted, and communication networks compromised. Humanity had proven that it could strike with deadly precision, using intelligence, strategy, and advanced technology to outmaneuver even the most experienced commanders. But the humans were not fighting for conquest or greed. They were fighting for justice, for the memory of Ambassador Daniel Reeves, and for the respect of their species. This purpose gave them strength, focus, and unity unlike anything the Council had ever seen. On the front lines, Admiral Sarah Holt coordinated the fleet with incredible skill. Every movement was calculated, every strike carefully chosen. Human. Warships moved through alien defense grids with speed and accuracy that left Council commanders stunned. While some aliens attempted counterattacks, their fleets were disorganized, struggling to respond to the humans' coordinated maneuvers. Earth's fleets avoided unnecessary destruction of civilian areas, focusing on military installations and command centers. The message was clear. Humanity was not reckless, but they would not forgive those who had committed murder. This approach earned a reluctant respect even from some of the alien populations, who began questioning the authority of their own leaders. As the war progressed, Earth uncovered shocking new information. Intelligence teams working in secret intercepted highly classified communications that revealed the full extent of the conspiracy behind Reeves's death. The High Chancellor of the Council, one of the most powerful and influential figures, had personally ordered the assassination. Fearing that human influence was growing too strong, he had orchestrated the explosion to eliminate Reeves before he could change the balance of power. The revelation was staggering. The Council's official statements, claiming accidents or technical failures, were exposed as blatant lies. Humanity now had proof not only of murder, but of deliberate high-level betrayal. When the intelligence was presented to the public on Earth, it caused outrage and a renewed surge of determination. Citizens everywhere, already grieving Reeves's death and inspired by humanity's early victories, were now enraged by the scale of the Council's deception. Across the planet, people rallied, volunteering to support military operations, sharing information and ensuring the fleets had everything they needed. Engineers worked tirelessly to upgrade ships and weapons, scientists developed new strategies, and military officers trained relentlessly. The death of one man had ignited an entire species into action, and there was no stopping the momentum now. Meanwhile, the alien populations began to feel the pressure. Evidence of the Chancellor's betrayal spread quickly among the Council's citizens. Many were horrified that their leaders had orchestrated the murder of a foreign diplomat, risking the lives of their species for political gain. Protests erupted on multiple planets, and lower-ranking officers began to question their orders. The Council's unity, once absolute, began to crumble. Fear, uncertainty, and doubt spread as humans continued to advance, demonstrating that they were capable, precise, and unyielding in their pursuit of justice. Humanity's war was not just a battle of weapons. It was a war of revelation, shaking the very trust on which the Council had relied for centuries. Back on Earth, Admiral Holt continued to oversee operations with a mix of intensity and precision. She often reviewed the intercepted communications personally, ensuring that no opportunity was wasted. Every fleet movement, every strike, was based on the most accurate intelligence available. Human commanders were instructed to avoid unnecessary casualties, focusing on dismantling the Council's power while minimizing harm to innocent civilians. This discipline highlighted a critical difference between humans and their enemies. Humans were not merely seeking revenge, they were executing justice with skill, intelligence, and honor. The humans' strategic operations also created unexpected opportunities. Alien factions that had been quietly opposed to the Chancellor's rule began to secretly cooperate with Earth. They provided intelligence, shared weaknesses in Council, defenses, and occasionally even sabotaged their own forces to aid the humans. Earth's fleets, already feared for their speed and precision, now benefited from insider knowledge, striking targets that were previously considered untouchable. The war had become a combination of military skill, intelligence, and psychological strategy, showcasing humanity's adaptability and ingenuity. Amidst the chaos of battle, Admiral Holt took a moment to reflect on the driving force behind humanity's actions. Reeves' death was more than a catalyst. It was a reminder of the stakes. Every strike, every maneuver, every intercepted message was done in his memory. Soldiers and officers spoke his name as a source of inspiration, reminding themselves that their fight was righteous and necessary. Reeves' ideals of courage, dignity, and justice had become the moral compass guiding humanity's actions in the galaxy. The humans were fighting not just for victory, but for honor, truth, and the principles that define their species. By mid-campaign, several key Council planets had been neutralized. Strategic outposts, command centers, and fleets were either destroyed or captured. Alien populations, witnessing the precision and discipline of human forces, began to question their leaders more openly. Some smaller species, long oppressed by the Council, saw an opportunity to break free from tyranny. Quietly, alliances began to form in favor of humanity, shifting the balance of power even further. The humans' initial strikes meant to avenge Reeves were now reshaping the political landscape of the entire galaxy. In one particularly significant operation, Earth forces captured a major Council intelligence hub. The data recovered from this operation revealed the full extent of corruption within the Council. Secret weapons programs, hidden agendas, and plans to manipulate or enslave other species. Humanity now had the knowledge and the power to not only punish the perpetrators, but to ensure that the Council could no longer threaten or manipulate any species, including Earth. This revelation energized the humans and demoralized the alien forces, further tipping the scales of the conflict. Despite the victories, the war was not without risk. Human fleets faced ambushes, sabotage attempts, and unpredictable tactics from alien commanders. Yet every challenge only reinforced their discipline, coordination, and innovation. Engineers developed new countermeasures, Tacticians devised unexpected strategies and pilots executed maneuvers that seemed impossible even by human standards. Humanity's unity, fueled by grief, anger, and determination, allowed them to overcome obstacles that might have defeated other species. The memory of Reeves was a constant reminder that failure was not an option. By the end of this phase of the war, humanity had accomplished something extraordinary. The Galactic Council's authority was fractured, key leaders exposed, and alien populations increasingly skeptical of their rulers. Human fleets had demonstrated precision, strategy, and discipline, sending a message that the species was no longer to be underestimated. Every victory, every revelation, reinforced humanity's place as a force that demanded respect. The Council, once confident in its dominance, was now fighting to survive, while humans, guided by justice and the memory of Reeves, continued to advance with unwavering determination. The final revelation came in the form of intercepted transmissions from the High Chancellor himself. He had ordered the assassination of Reeves to maintain control over the Council, fearing that humanity's influence would challenge his power. The recordings, broadcast across the galaxy by human intelligence units, ignited outrage among alien populations. Leaders who had once followed the Chancellor blindly were now questioning his motives. Citizens, seeing the truth, demanded accountability. Humanity had not only avenged Reeves but had exposed the Council's corruption and laid bare the deception that had threatened countless species. By the time humanity paused for regrouping, the galaxy had changed. The Council's credibility was shattered, the High Chancellor's treachery revealed, and alien populations were increasingly turning away from their corrupt leaders. Humans, disciplined, strategic, and united, had transformed the war from a fight for vengeance into a campaign for justice, truth, and balance. And through it all, the spirit of Daniel Reeves guided every decision, reminding humanity why they had fought and why they could not afford to fail. The war had entered a new phase. Humanity was no longer merely reacting. They were shaping the future of the galaxy. The Council's attempts to maintain control were failing, and humans had proven that when pushed, their species could rise with skill, intelligence, and moral purpose. The legacy of Reeves, the courage of Admiral Holt, and the unity of Earth's people had created a force that could not be ignored. The galaxy would never see humanity the same way again. The war that had begun with the murder of Ambassador Daniel Reeves had reached its final stages. Humanity's fleets had proven unstoppable, and the Galactic Council's authority was crumbling. The Council had once been considered unchallengeable, a collection of the galaxy's most powerful and ancient species. But humans had changed the balance of power. They had fought not with reckless anger but with strategy, discipline, and precision. Every strike, every operation had been guided by the memory of Reeves, reminding the species why they were fighting, not for greed, not for conquest, but for justice and the respect they had long been denied. Alien leaders were desperate. Factions that had once supported the High Chancellor now turned against him. Plans for retaliation had failed repeatedly, as humanity's forces anticipated every move. Civilian populations, previously silent and obedient, began to protest against the leaders who had betrayed not only Reeves but also the principles of fairness and morality. The Council's image, carefully constructed over centuries, was shattered. Its fleets had been scattered, key installations destroyed, and secrets exposed. Humanity had not just defeated the Council militarily, they had broken its credibility, leaving it unable to rule effectively even if it had survived physically. On Earth, celebrations were muted but determined. Citizens knew the cost of victory, the lives lost, the cities affected by preparation for the war, and the countless resources expended. Yet there was pride in the air. Humanity had not only survived, but had risen to become a dominant force in the galaxy. Across every continent, people reflected on what had been achieved. A species that had once been dismissed as emotional and weak had now demonstrated intelligence, courage, and unity on a scale that no alien could ignore. Schools, offices, and homes across the planet filled with discussions of the war, Admiral Holt's leadership, and Reeves's sacrifice. The final battles were precise. Humanity avoided unnecessary destruction, targeting only the remaining military installations and command centers of the Council. Alien fleets that remained were either destroyed or captured. Human engineers and strategists ensured that planetary infrastructure was largely unharmed, sending a clear message. Humans did not fight for hate. They fought for justice. As the final Council strongholds fell, Earth began broadcasting the truth about Reeves's death and the Council's corruption to the galaxy. Millions of alien citizens witnessed the revelations, and many turned against their leaders. The Council was no longer seen as a legitimate authority. It had lost the moral, political, and military ground it had once held so firmly. Admiral Holt led the final operation personally. She coordinated every ship, every pilot, and every weapon system with a calm intensity. Her mind constantly replayed the image of Reeves, and she remembered his courage, diplomacy, and unwavering sense of justice. Every strike was executed flawlessly, and by the end of the campaign, the remnants of the Council were either in hiding or in captivity. The warships that had once threatened humanity now lay in ruins, and human forces controlled key strategic systems across the galaxy. Humanity had not only survived the attack, they had dominated the battlefield with precision and moral purpose. As the dust settled, the focus shifted from military victory to rebuilding and establishing a new order. Humans did not seek to enslave or exploit the Council's citizens. Instead, they worked to ensure stability, fairness, and accountability. Evidence of corruption, manipulation, and treachery among the Council's leadership was presented to the alien populations, encouraging self-governance and ethical leadership. Many smaller species, long oppressed by the Council, were empowered to create their own systems of government. Humanity's approach was clear. Respect and justice, not domination, would define the new order. The High Chancellor, the mastermind behind Reeves's assassination, was finally captured. His trial was broadcast galaxy-wide, ensuring that every species witnessed accountability in action. The evidence was overwhelming. Recorded orders, communications, and witness testimonies confirmed his role in the murder. He was held responsible not only for Reeves's death, but for decades of corruption, oppression, and deception. The trial sent a powerful message to every species. No one, no matter how powerful, could act with impunity against justice and truth. Humanity had not only avenged Reeves, but had restored moral balance to a galaxy that had long ignored fairness and accountability. Memorials for Daniel Reeves were held both on Earth and across the galaxy. In every major city, people gathered to honor his life, his dedication to peace, and his bravery. Statues, holographic displays, and public ceremonies reminded everyone of the man who had inspired a species to rise, not out of hatred or anger, but out of respect, justice, and courage. His speeches and principles were studied in schools, his strategies analyzed in military academies, and his legacy celebrated as the spark that had awakened humanity's full potential in the galaxy. Reeves's name became synonymous with integrity, bravery, and the unyielding pursuit of justice. Across the galaxy, alien populations also reflected on the events. Leaders who had once manipulated their citizens were overthrown or imprisoned. Those who had supported humanity's fight gained credibility and respect. The old council was no more, replaced by a network of fair, accountable governments guided by transparency and moral principles. Humanity's influence spread not through fear, but through example. Other species began to recognize the value of honesty, strategy, and justice, inspired by how humans had acted both decisively and morally. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. Underestimating humanity came with consequences, but humanity's power was balanced by ethics and responsibility. Even as humanity consolidated its victories, there was reflection. The war had cost lives, resources, and peace. Cities and planets had been affected, and families mourned loved ones lost in preparation or conflict. Yet there was pride in the resilience, unity, and discipline shown. Humans had achieved something unprecedented. They had avenged the death of one diplomat, exposed corruption in the galaxy, and reshaped interstellar politics, all while maintaining their ethical principles. The story of Daniel Reeves's death had become a catalyst for growth, unity, and the assertion of humanity's place among the stars. Admiral Holt, standing at the memorial for Reeves, spoke quietly. Though her words were heard by millions through a broadcast, they thought we were weak. They thought we would forgive. But we acted not out of rage, but out of justice. Daniel Reeves showed us the way. He taught us courage, patience, and honor. And today we honor him by ensuring that humanity will never be ignored again. Her words captured the sentiment of an entire species. Humans had fought not just to survive, but to claim their rightful place in the galaxy as equals, feared, respected, and trusted. The galaxy itself seemed to shift in response. Species that had once been subjugated by the Council now began to thrive. Interstellar trade, diplomacy, and cultural exchange blossomed under new agreements guided by fairness and ethics. Humans became leaders not only in military strength but also in diplomacy, demonstrating that power could be paired with morality. Reeves's legacy lived on in the policies, systems, and leadership principles that Earth shared across the stars. The memory of his life and death became a constant reminder that justice, intelligence, and courage could change the course of history. In the end, humanity had won not merely a war, but a transformation. The death of one man had awakened an entire species, reshaping the galaxy in ways no one could have predicted. Earth had become a beacon of strength, justice, and respect, guiding not only its own people but inspiring countless other civilizations. Humanity had paid a terrible price, but it had earned what it had always sought: dignity, recognition, and the certainty that no one would underestimate them again. As the stars glimmered in the vast darkness of space, people on Earth looked up with pride. Humanity had faced its greatest test and emerged victorious, not only through power but through honor and strategy. And somewhere among the stars, Daniel Reeves' spirit seemed to watch over them, reminding humanity that courage and justice could inspire an entire species, change the galaxy, and create a legacy that would never be forgotten.